And it finally happened. The week that we were all dreading. She finally had a tough week, which has not happened 10 weeks into the season. But she gave everybody a little gift that I saw online after the tough week with some kind of sexy black leather stripe outfit to say, I'm sorry, fantasy players. It's not going to happen again, but enjoy me for who I am. Lisa Ann, Craig and Evan, how you been?
I've been great. I just got to start this where we left it off. And yes, I'm going to have good and bad
Of
weeks,
course.
but that doesn't seem to be the thing for the Jets. And if I recall, weren't you last week saying the Jets were going to lose every single game the rest of the season? The only game the Jets are going to lose is this week because they're on bye week.
Lisa Ann, thank you so much because we have been ribbing him all week long, not only about that comment, but about him also saying they had no chance to beat the Bills, don't even show up. So it warms my heart that on this Friday, the first thing you said was that.
Well,
thank you.
I would like to say I will take that in the spirit it was meant.
Damn right.
I had a very tough week as well. So for the fans, I am now going to reveal my black leather lace bra. No. Anyhow, good seeing you, and thanks for being patient with us there. All right, let's get into a big week. Obviously, you got the game out in Germany with Tampa Bay and Seattle. But as always, what we asked Lisa to do, because she is legitimately a bona fide expert in fantasy, and I've never met anyone who is as on the money as she is. But obviously, no one's going to go 17-0. You know the reality of that. So we try to find players who are good value, not the obvious. And let's go over player number one. Who do you got?
Player number one has played like absolute trash, and that would be the Denver Broncos quarterback, Russell Wilson. Look, Wilson's going up against Tennessee. Their secondary has given up over 100 yards to the wide receiver in 4 games so far this season. Russell Wilson is a cheap price of $5,900 on DraftKings, and I am pairing him with the only wide receiver he thinks plays for his team, which is Jerry Jeudy, who is only $5,700 on DK.
Yeah, and Judy's interesting because there's a lot of people that thought he was going to get moved at the trade deadline, and I wasn't among them because my feeling was you committed so much money to Russell Wilson that even if you are kind of rebuilding, they have a badass defense. You're not going to get rid of your best offensive player. You're going to try to supplement, kind of like what Chicago did.
Or just get rid of your best defensive player.
Well, right, which made no sense, right? But, yeah, so I kind of like that. And I think Russell Wilson, one of these days, although to be fair, I've been saying that about Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers too, is going to have that quote-unquote breakout game. So I'm with you on that. I like that. Who else
Yeah, I
do we
agree
have?
with you. I mean, Wilson has to have a breakout game sometime this season just to make that value. Last in the running back position, I'm going to Miami. Jeff Wilson Jr. facing Cleveland. Not as cheap as I'd like. He's $5,500, but all of these players under $6,000 does give you some wiggle room in your lineup. Wilson's playing more snaps than Mostert. He had 16 fantasy points last week, and this is probably the last week you can get him for less than $6,000.
Are you assuming Josh Allen doesn't play, which I think is a safe assumption? He's probably not going to
He
play.
didn't practice at all this
How
week.
do you handle Buffalo play? Like, do you stay away from Stephon Diggs? Are you more likely to play a Devin Singletary? How do you view the impact of no Josh Allen in Buffalo?
Yeah, both the things you say right there. I would definitely play Devin Singletary. So far, the rushing game has been 80% Josh Allen. So now it's Singletary's turn to step up and do his job, which he's been waiting to do. I'm not as worried about Steph Diggs as I am like Russell Gage. You know, I'd stay away from the secondary wide receivers, but I still think Steph Diggs can get it done. But you're going to look at that run game. We are kind of planning as if Josh Allen isn't playing, which, you know, again, the Jets kind of got lucky because it would have been a different story last week, but they still got that win. I just have to continue to bring this up because so many people noticed that I ended the show with "Let's Go Jets," and when the Jets won, all the Jets fans came to me and said, "You gave us good luck."
Yeah, okay.
When
That's
you
fine. I'll
combine
take
Lisa
I'll
Ann
take
saying
I'll
"Let's go
take
Jets" and combine it with Craig saying they have no chance,
I'll
that's
take it.
called a match made in heaven.
I'm just glad they listen. You know, if people come up to you and you do your appearances and whatnot and say, I heard you on Carton and Roberts and way to give it to them, that's a win for all of us because it means that they're an active listening member of our audience. You know, I would also take a look maybe at Nyheim Hines in Buffalo because Josh Allen may not play. And I wonder if you give any thought at all, if you're looking for like really crazy value, there's some train of thought, I'm not among them, that thinks, okay, if Allen doesn't play, this is Case Keenum's revenge game.
Revenge
the
game.
The team that let me go after I won the Minneapolis Miracle game for them. Would you give any flyers to a Case Keenum if you didn't have a quarterback on your team?
I sure would. And look, in last-minute DFS lineups that I put it on Sunday morning when that decision is made, 11:30, that lineup, the players come out, inactives. I will definitely be making that little crunch. And also Naheem Hines, because he'll probably share the backfield. But Buffalo may have some weather this weekend, so that could slow the ball down as well.
Is there any team out there that we haven't brought up over the 2.5 months we've done this with you that has a guy that is still putting up the numbers, but for whatever reason the fantasy world hasn't really caught on to the performance that he puts up more often than not? Is there a guy that I'm just not thinking of or seeing?
I think people are still laying low on Cole Hardman, though he's questionable, probably out for this week. But my sleeper moving forward is a tight end in Tampa Bay, and that's Kate Otten. He's seen 5 more targets the last 5 games. We know Brady loves to lean on the tight end. And you've got Cameron Brate down there who's been questionable, most likely not going to play this week. But I'm looking at Otten for the rest of the season. He's getting a little run. I picked him up on the waiver wire in a bunch of leagues.
And it's funny. Most people heard about him for the first time when he gets the game-winning touchdown.
He scored that touchdown last week.
Yeah.
And before we let you go, thank you, SNY. I'll see you guys on Monday. I know veterans are near and dear to your heart, and today being Veterans Day, just want to give you an opportunity to say whatever's on your mind regarding the veterans in our country and the support that you have for all those men and women.
Yes, we're so thankful for their service and for everything they've sacrificed for us. My grandfather was a World War II photographer, and the last 3 years of his life, I visited him in a nursing home and brought a box of photos every trip. So, when somebody is suffering from dementia, they can normally remember the past, but not the current. And he relived the entire time he was shooting photos for the war, would read to me what was written so perfectly on the back, tell me who the people were, where he was. And it was a fascinating journey for me to get to go through for 3 years. And it gave me a totally different appreciation for the life that they've lived for us.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, and not to be repetitive for our audience, but for your sake. I started a project about 6-7 months ago where I started interviewing World War II veterans because I wanted their stories to live on. I wanted my kids, to know their stories. And I never didn't cry. And I always left every one of these interview sessions with just I guess the best way for me to put it is with an amazement for the lives that these men that I met lived. Because none of them brag about it. None of them really were even comfortable or wanted to ever talk about it. And now when you get them, and not a lot of them won't talk. And sadly, they go to their grave having never told, their story. And there's one particular gentleman who unfortunately has passed on since I met with him and talked to him, told a story that his family had never heard before. And it dawned on me that this was as special for his family as it was for me, hearing the story and meeting this gentleman for the first time. So I'm glad that you got to have that moment, over the course of several years with your grandfather. And I just hope that, people out there recognize the sacrifice that people made back then. And if you have an opportunity to learn and listen to more of their stories, please do, because, we use the term heroic too often. And we use it in sports, for silly reasons. But there's a generation of men and women that are legitimate heroes. And I wish their stories could all be told. And I hope that people take more time beyond just today to want to get to hear those stories and listen to what those people did and the lives that they lived. So I'm glad you got to share that. I'm sure that was probably very emotional for you.
And what else was fascinating was my grandmother wrote my grandfather a letter every single day for 4 years in one day, and he had them all. And so there was such a love both ways. There was support at home. Someone was at home with children, waiting and hoping and praying that everything was going to be fine. So to learn the whole full circle of it was beautiful. And it really made me realize how we don't understand the struggle, the sacrifice, and what others lived through so that we could live the way we live right now.
Well, great job always talking to you. Good luck in fantasy and the rest of your weekend. And we look forward to doing it, of course, next Friday. Lisa Ann, you can check her out. Now, on social media, there is an imposter problem. So it's real Lisa
The real.
Ann.
The real. The real.
Real.
The real.
Lisa
The real.
Ann.
The real.
That's it.
The real.
The
That's it.
real
The
Lisa
real Lisa
Ann.
Ann.
And
Yes.
you have a blue check mark, not because you paid $8, but because you're the real Lisa Ann, damn it.
Yeah, I have it on Facebook. I have it on Twitter. I have it on Instagram. Who knows how long it's going to mean anything anywhere.
Exactly. All right, good seeing you, kiddo. Have a great weekend, okay?
You
There
too.
you go. The real Lisa Ann.